My brother said I was selfish for not babysitting again. So I sent him my hourly rate, blocked him, and enjoyed my weekend like never before. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. You know the type: the sister who remembers birthdays, keeps the family group chat alive, and drops everything the moment someone needs help. For years, I thought that made me a good person, but lately it just makes me feel used. My brother, Mark, is a single dad of two adorable chaos machines. I love my nieces, truly, but somewhere between, "Can you watch them for a few hours?" and "You don't mind having them all weekend, right?" I stopped feeling like their aunt and started feeling like a free babysitter. It wasn't always this bad. When he first divorced, I offered to help. He was broken, struggling to adjust, and I wanted to be there for him. But that was 3 years ago. Now, it feels less like help and more like obligation, like he's built a routine around my kindness. Last Friday, I got the same text I always do. "Hey, can you watch the girls tonight? I need a break." I was exhausted from work, had a pounding headache, and just wanted to sleep. Still, guilt gnawed at me. So, like an idiot, I said yes. The girls were sweet, but wild. Snacks everywhere, toys scattered like confetti, and endless energy that my tired body couldn't keep up with. When Mark finally came back, late and half drunk, he laughed and said, "You're a lifesaver. Don't know what I'd do without you." No gas money, no gratitude. Just that lazy smile and an unspoken expectation that I'd do it again next week. That night, as I cleaned up spilled juice from my couch, a quiet thought finally hit me. Maybe I'm not the responsible one. Maybe I'm just the easiest to take advantage of. The next weekend rolled around and I swore I'd finally say no. I even rehearsed it in the mirror. "Sorry, I've got plans." Simple, polite, firm. But then my phone buzzed. "Mark again. You free tonight? I'm heading out with some friends. Just for a few hours." I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. My heart said no, but guilt whispered yes. I hated that voice, the one that told me I was heartless for not helping family. Against my better judgment, I replied, "Okay, drop them off after dinner." He showed up late, as usual, with the girls half asleep in the back seat and a cocky grin on his face. "You're the best, sis. I owe you one." He always owed me one, but never paid. That night dragged on forever. The girls woke up restless, missing their dad. I comforted them, tucked them in, and scrolled through social media while my phone lit up with Mark's drunk texts, pictures from a bar, a boomerang of him clinking glasses with someone. Living my best life. By 2 a.m., I was exhausted. My head throbbed, my eyes burned, and I had to be up early the next morning for work. When Mark finally stumbled through the door, he reeked of alcohol. He mumbled something about the crazy night he had and collapsed onto my couch like it was his bed. I stood there, staring at him, clutching a blanket for his daughters who were asleep in the next room. Something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in realization. He wasn't struggling anymore. He wasn't overwhelmed. He was comfortable, because I made it easy for him to be. And for the first time, I started to wonder, if I stopped saying yes, would he even call me at all? After that night, I promised myself it would be the last time. I even drafted a message telling Mark I needed a break from babysitting, but I never sent it. Every time I thought about hitting send, my phone buzzed with another one of his guilt-laced requests. "You girls keep asking about you. You know I can't afford daycare right now. You're seriously gonna let your nieces down?" Each text felt like a punch wrapped in family guilt. He knew exactly which buttons to press. And the worst part, it worked. Every single time. Then my mom started joining the chorus. "He's a single father, sweetheart. You know how hard that is. Family helps family." It wasn't advice. It was pressure disguised as love. I wanted to scream that I was tired, that I worked 50-hour weeks, that I had a life outside of being the family safety net. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled and said, "Yeah, I'll help." There were weekends I missed hanging out with friends. A few times I even skipped dates because Mark called last minute. I told myself it was temporary, just until he got back on his feet. But deep down, I knew the truth. He'd been standing on mine the whole time. One Sunday night, after another favor, I collapsed on my couch surrounded by empty juice boxes and crayon stains. I looked around my silent apartment and realized I couldn't remember the last time it had actually felt like mine. That night, I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "If I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone even notice? Or just miss the help?" And somewhere in that quiet, tired moment, a small, defiant thought began to form. Maybe it was finally time to stop feeling guilty for wanting peace. When my boss announced we'd be getting a long weekend off, no emails, no deadlines, no chaos, I almost cried from relief. It was the first real break I'd had in months. I started planning a solo getaway. Spa, silence, maybe a beachside Airbnb where the only responsibility I'd have was to breathe. Then, right as I was confirming my booking, my phone buzzed. "Mark." "Hey, can you watch the girls this weekend? Got a date I can't miss." I froze. My stomach sank. He didn't even ask if I was free. It was just assumed. I typed, "Sorry, I already made plans." For a moment, I felt proud. It was short, honest, and guilt-free. But not 2 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mark. "Wait, you're serious? You can't take one weekend for your own family." His voice dripped with disbelief, like I'd just told him I hated his kids. "Mark, I've watched them almost every weekend for months. I just need some time for myself," he scoffed. "You don't even have kids. What do you need a break from?" That line hit like a slap. He made it sound like my life didn't count, like being single and child-free meant my time was automatically available. I felt my voice shake as I said, "From being everyone else's backup plan." He went silent for a moment, then muttered, "Wow, selfish much?" and hung up. I sat there, phone still in my hand, heart pounding. The air felt heavy, like all the unspoken resentment of the last few years had finally landed on my chest. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't tired from work. I was tired from being used, and this time I wasn't going to let guilt win. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying Mark's words. Selfish much? Over and over like a broken record. The audacity of it all made my stomach twist. I wasn't asking for the world. Just one weekend. One. But to him, saying no meant betrayal. By morning, my frustration had hardened into something sharper. Clarity. If he wanted to treat me like hired help, fine. I'd start acting like one. So when he texted again the next day, pretending nothing happened, "Hey, about this weekend. Can you just take them Saturday instead? I'll pay you back somehow." I took a deep breath and typed a reply I'd been too afraid to send for years. "Sure. My hourly rate is $25. Overtime is time and a half after 8 hours. Let me know what time you'll drop them off." For a few seconds, I just stared at the message, heart pounding. Then I hit send. The read receipt popped up almost instantly. A pause. Then, LMAO, "Are you serious? Charging your own brother?" I didn't respond. Instead, I set my phone down, leaned back, and smiled. A tired, satisfied kind of smile. For once, I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't begging to be understood. A few minutes later, another text came through. "Unbelievable. You've changed. Maybe I had. Maybe I was done letting family be an excuse for exploitation." That night, for the first time in months, I cooked myself dinner, poured a glass of wine, and watched a movie without interruption. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. I'd already given enough of my time away for free. And somehow, that silence, that simple act of not replying, felt like the most expensive thing I'd ever done. It didn't take long for the family drama to explode. By the next morning, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. First from Mom, then Aunt Carol, and even our cousin Lisa, who I hadn't spoken to in months. "Your brother told me you're charging to babysit now?" Mom's text read. "Please tell me that's a joke." I sighed and typed back, "It's not about money, Mom. It's about boundaries. I work full-time. I can't keep doing it for free." Her reply came fast. "He's a single father. How can you be so cold? Family helps family." That phrase again. The golden rule everyone loved throwing at me when it was my turn to give. Funny how no one ever said it when I needed help moving or when I was sick and alone in my apartment. Mark must have been busy spreading the story because Aunt Carol called next. "Honey, you're not yourself lately. Are you okay? Maybe you're just stressed. Don't take it out on your brother." I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. They all acted like I'd committed some kind of moral crime by valuing my time. Not one of them asked how I was doing. That night, I sat on my couch, phone still buzzing in the background, and realized something harsh. My family didn't want me happy. They wanted me available. Every favor I did, every plan I canceled, every piece of myself I gave away for free, it wasn't appreciated. It was expected. So I put my phone on silent, turned off the lights, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. Let them talk. Let them guilt. I wasn't backing down this time, but I could feel it. This wasn't just tension anymore. It was war. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. No texts from Mark, no guilt calls from Mom, no late night, "Can you just help this once?" Messages. For the first few days, the silence felt like punishment. That cold, passive-aggressive family tactic where no one says you're wrong, but everyone acts like you've committed treason. At first, I kept checking my phone, half expecting an apology or maybe just a, "Hey, can we talk?" But nothing came. The group chat went silent too, except for the occasional photo of my nieces that Mark would post, captioned with things like, "Doing it all alone." It hurt more than I'd like to admit. I'd always been close to the girls. We had our little routines, bedtime stories, pancakes on Sundays, silly dances in the living room. The thought of them wondering why Auntie didn't come around anymore twisted my heart. But with every day that passed, the guilt started to fade, replaced by something softer. Relief. I started noticing how peaceful my weekends had become. No more last-minute drop-offs. No sticky handprints on my walls. No resentment boiling under my forced smiles. I could sleep in, go for walks, read, breathe. My apartment finally felt like mine again, and for the first time in years, I started thinking about me, my own goals, my own happiness. I realized how much mental real estate I'd given away to people who didn't value my boundaries. One Sunday morning, I sat on my balcony with coffee and sunlight spilling across my face. My phone buzzed once, a message from Mark. I didn't open it. Not yet, because I knew the moment I did, the peace might end, and I wasn't ready to give that up again. A few weeks later, Mom invited everyone to a family barbecue to clear the air. Her words, not mine. I hesitated at first, but part of me hoped maybe this would be the olive branch, a chance to talk things out. So I went. The backyard looked the same as always. The mismatched lawn chairs, the smell of grilled corn, the sound of kids shrieking with laughter. For a moment I felt nostalgic. Then I spotted Mark, laughing loudly near the grill, beer in hand, holding court like the perfect single dad. I tried to stay polite, nodding at him from a distance, but then I overheard him talking to one of our cousins, and every word made my stomach churn. "Yeah, it's tough doing everything alone," he was saying, shaking his head dramatically. "Some people in the family just don't get what it means to sacrifice. But I manage. I always do." The hypocrisy hit me like a slap. Alone? He had me for years, until I finally said no. Before I could stop myself, I walked up behind him and said quietly, "That's funny. Mark, you didn't seem so alone when I was watching your kids every weekend." His smile faltered. "Oh, come on." "Don't start," I kept my voice steady. "Start what? Telling the truth?" People around us grew quiet. He forced a laugh and said, "That's what family does. They help." I stared at him and replied, "Exactly. So, where were you when I needed help?" His mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence that followed said everything. I turned, walked toward the house, and for the first time in a long time, didn't look back. But even as I left that barbecue, a strange mix of strength and sadness settled over me, because I knew that confrontation wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the fallout. That night, after the barbecue, I came home feeling hollow, I'd stood up for myself, yes, but it didn't feel empowering. It felt lonely. My phone buzzed as I kicked off my shoes. It was a text from Mom. Long. Emotional. The kind that starts calm but ends with guilt. I can't believe you embarrassed your brother in front of everyone. You've changed so much lately. What happened to my sweet girl? You're tearing this family apart over money. Over money. That phrase made my chest tighten. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. But no one seemed to understand that. I wanted to defend myself, to explain everything, but I knew it would be pointless. No matter what I said, I'd still be the villain in their story. So I didn't reply. I just sat there in the dark, watching the light from my phone fade out as the messages stopped coming. The silence after that was deafening. The next few days blurred together. My appetite disappeared. I stopped checking social media because every photo of my nieces made me ache. I kept thinking, maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have just kept the peace. But then, one morning, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Puffy eyes, tired skin, a shell of myself, and realized something brutal. The version of me that always kept the peace. She wasn't peaceful. She was exhausted. That was my rock bottom. The moment I understood that trying to earn love through self-sacrifice was just another form of self-destruction. I took a deep breath, deleted Mom's message thread, and whispered to my reflection, "You're not selfish. You're finally choosing you." And for the first time, I almost believed it. A few days later, I woke up to another message from Mark. No, hey, no, how are you? Just straight to business. Can you watch the girls this Saturday? It's important. I stared at it for a full minute, half expecting it to be a joke. After everything that happened, the argument, the barbecue, the silence, he still thought I'd say yes. The sheer audacity almost made me laugh. I took a deep breath, opened our chat, and typed back slowly, "Sure. My rates haven't changed." Send. The dots appeared. He was typing, then stopped. A few seconds later, I got his reply. "You're unbelievable. Family doesn't treat each other like this," I smiled to myself. "Exactly," I whispered. "Family doesn't use each other either." I didn't text that part. I didn't need to. Instead, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked his number. The second I hit that button, an unexpected calm washed over me, like taking off a heavy jacket I didn't realize I'd been wearing for years. I spent that weekend exactly how I'd planned before all the guilt trips and obligations. Sleeping in, cooking my favorite food, watching movies without being interrupted by crying or calls. The quiet felt sacred, healing. At one point, I caught myself laughing out loud at something stupid on TV and realized it had been months since I'd laughed like that. Real laughter. The kind that bubbles up when you finally feel free. For once, I didn't feel like the bad sister or the selfish one. I just felt like me. And even though part of me knew the family backlash wasn't over yet, I also knew something else. I was finally done explaining my piece to people who thrived on my exhaustion. That weekend felt like stepping into someone else's life. Someone lighter, freer, and unapologetically happy. I woke up without dread gnawing at my chest, without my phone buzzing with last-minute demands. Just sunlight spilling through my curtains and the quiet hum of my own thoughts. I brewed my favorite coffee, the kind I used to rush through while juggling everything for everyone else. I took my time this time, cinnamon, vanilla creamer, a slow sip while music filled the background. The kind of peace that used to feel like a luxury now felt like my right. Saturday afternoon, I took myself out, something I hadn't done in forever. I wandered through a local market, tried on silly sunglasses, bought flowers for my kitchen table just because they made me smile. For once, I wasn't rushing anywhere. I wasn't trying to earn rest. I was simply living. At one point, while sitting at a cafe, I noticed a dad with his two daughters at the next table. They were laughing, messy, full of energy, and he looked tired, but present. It made me smile. That's what parenting should look like, I thought. Not dumping your responsibilities onto someone else's shoulders. That night, I made a small camp on my balcony. Fairy lights, a blanket, soft music. The city glowed beneath me while a soft breeze brushed against my face. And I realized something powerful. Peace doesn't always come from fixing things. Sometimes it comes from walking away from what breaks you. I had no idea what my family was saying about me now, and for the first time, I didn't care, because I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living my own weekend, and it felt like the start of something I'd been missing all along. Me. A few weeks passed before I heard from Mark again. Not directly, of course. Through our cousin, the family's unofficial messenger. He says he misses you, she told me. He feels bad, but he doesn't know how to reach out. I stayed quiet for a moment, sipping my coffee. Part of me wanted to roll my eyes. Another part, the old version of me, wanted to run right back and fix everything. But I wasn't her anymore, so I agreed to meet him. Neutral ground, a cafe halfway between our places. When he walked in, he looked different. Tired, maybe even humbled. We sat in silence for a while before he finally said, "You really blocked me, huh?" I smiled softly. "Yeah, I had to," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I shouldn't have called you selfish. You helped me more than anyone, and I took advantage of that. I just wasn't ready to admit it." For a moment, the wall I'd built started to crack, but I reminded myself, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. "I love my nieces, Mark," I said gently, "but I'm not their second parent. If you need help, ask, but respect my no. I'm done feeling guilty for setting boundaries." He nodded, eyes lowered. "I get it. I really do." We talked a bit more, light, cautious, human. When we parted, it wasn't dramatic or emotional, just peaceful. As I walked back to my car, I felt a calm I'd never known before. I hadn't lost my brother. I'd just stopped raising him. The freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, and mine. For once, my life didn't revolve around anyone else's needs. I finally learned that saying no wasn't selfish. It was self-respect.